Open sesame. It's time for the Sports Vault with Jersey Joe and Big Shot Rob.
Yeah, Joe, I think the Knicks are going to win the championship this year. They're going to beat the Heat.
Let me stop you right there, Rob. The Miami Heat will win the championship this year.
It's back-to-back titles for the Heat. The 2013 NBA championship resides once again in Miami.
The Madden cover winner in 2012 was Peyton Hillis.
Peyton who?
Running room to the edge. Peyton Hillis is loose. Sprint to the end zone. Touchdown.
Hello. With the most, Jersey Joe, coming with my partner, Big Shot Rob, and I'm fired up. We've got a fantastic show today. A lot of good stuff to talk about. You're going to be hearing me yell a lot because there's a lot of things that I need to get off my chest in the sports world right now. But let's kick it off with our recap of last night's big NBA game. You had the Miami Heat. I'm going to use this word, Rob, dismantling the New York Knicks 108-82. LeBron James had 31 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists. And, I mean, just the Heat had played terrific 5 games after the All-Star break. The ball movement, the sharpness of the defense, they've executed. It all looks extremely good. And I was a little bit concerned before the All-Star break because the Heat really weren't playing good defense. Their execution wasn't good. The ball movement was atrocious. And I think since the All-Star break, they've cleaned it all up. I really like how Miami's looking right now. They're doing what they need to do. And if they can continue this play going into the playoffs, man, no one's stopping Miami. But that was just my takes from the Heat side. For the Knicks side, it's a mess.
Carmelo's just doing all the work for this team.
I got Carmelo ran prepared, but
I don't understand this team whatsoever, Joe. This was a team that won 54 games last year, and this is just straight out embarrassing. In the East, they should be a 15 seed with how bad they play.
No, and I mean, it's really inexcusable. I mean, you saw fast break points where the Knicks were just lazy, not getting back on defense. There was a couple plays where the Heat just lobbed it down to LeBron, and there was no one on the Knicks even near them. After the Knicks had some pretty good offensive plays, but there's no energy on defense, and I think that you can only blame Mike Woodson so much. It's just, at the end of the day, it's up to the players, and I really think that all the unfair criticism of Woodson is overblown. And the main thing I want to say is, though, you never hear anybody in the media ever blame Carmelo Anthony. All I ever hear when I turn things on is, well, in spite of Carmelo's good play, he's having his greatest season ever, and I think it's time, and I say it all the time, he needs a lot of the blame. Here's my assessment of Carmelo Anthony. He's been out of the first round of the playoffs 2 times in his career. Last year against the Celtics, the Celtics almost came back and won that series. Inexcusable. 2 times is not good enough. He's a volume shooter. He's not an efficient scorer. He's a ball stopper. The offense stops with him. He's lifeless on the defensive end. The great ones, they play both ends of the floor. He has a low basketball IQ. You see it all the time in big moments. He has terrible core vision. He never makes his teammates better. Does that sound like an all-star franchise player? It doesn't to me. I mean, when I think all-star franchise leading players, it's guys who play both ends of the floor, guys who make their teammates better, guys who are efficient scorers. And I just think that you can't say that about him. I'm not saying he's a bad player, but I think people unjustifiably put him on a pedestal and they consider him one of the best. I think one of the teams is going to go out there and try to give him all this money and consider him a franchise-changing player. He's going to make you competitive. I think you're nuts. I've been saying it for years. I think Carmelo Anthony is the most overrated player in the NBA, and all those reasons I just said I think are justifiable. But Rob, you're a Knicks fan. You've been watching the Knicks. From a Knicks fan perspective, how do you vote Carmelo Anthony?
Well, Carmelo Anthony, yes, you know what? He does choke at some key moments in games.
I don't think even choke is a word. I just think all those other things are the thing I cite.
I feel that he's more efficient, Joe. Later on in the season, he's become more efficient with his shooting. He hasn't been hitting, Joe, 9 for 30 in games. He's hitting now 11 for 20 in games, 15 for 25. And he's also cracking the boards more. I feel he needs to step up and be that leader. That's what the big thing is with Carmelo Anthony. He's not showing his leadership role with this team, and that's what the biggest problem is. I do see him, though, as an elite player. You know what? People like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade are saying that he's the only one putting in effort and stuff, and I do think he is putting all he can do for this team. I really think he's a great player, though, Joe.
I mean, I agree he's a good player, but it's just I just can't pick a guy who's just... I don't see him making people better, and I think when you're a guy who's supposedly of his caliber, who's going to earn the kind of money he is, I think you need to be a leader, which I think is a good point by you. He's never shown that he wants to take the leadership role, but he'll take the leadership money in a heartbeat, so that doesn't work out there. And just the big thing I just can't stand with him has been his laziness on defense. I'll agree with Rob that he definitely has improved as a rebounder this season. Rebounds are definitely up. Efficiency hasn't... I mean, he's always going to be what he is. He's going to take too many shots, but efficiency hasn't been as bad this season. But overall, I just have never seen the commitment to defense playing both ends of the floor from Carmelo Anthony, and you just are never going to be an elite caliber player in my mind when you don't do that. So, Big Shot Rob, I respect his opinions, but in my opinion, he's the most overrated player in the NBA. Let's move on to our second part of the NBA segment, though. In the Kyrie Irving camp reports, there have been reports this week from Brian Windhorst, who I think is probably the most knowledgeable, most trustworthy NBA guy out there. I listen to him over anybody else, and he's saying that the Kyrie Irving's camp has made it clear that he wants to be elsewhere long term. Now, the Cavs they're going to offer him a max contract on July 1st. The Cavs can match any deal offered if Irving hits restricted free agency in the summer of 2015, but no player in his position has ever declined the contract. And the thing I look at for the Cavs is, since he's been a member of the Cavs, in 2011, his rookie year, they were 21-45. 2012, they were 24-58. 2013, when they were supposed to finally take the next step forward, they're 23-36 at this point. And I just think overall, it's just, you've seen the same problems that have existed since LeBron James was there. Dan Gilbert does not have the ability to put together a competitive enough team. He rehired a recycled coach, which never works out. He just doesn't put the right pieces together. It's a dysfunctional organization, and if I was Kyrie Irving, I would do everything in my power to get as far away from there as possible. But Rob, let's get your perspective on this.
I think Kyrie should leave in a heartbeat. This team has not been improving whatsoever, Joe. And sometimes with this ownership role in GM, you wonder, why isn't he signing any superstars? He has all this money, Joe. We know he has plenty of money to sign these superstars because he doesn't have any big contracts on this team. And it's the same thing when you look back when LeBron played in Cleveland. What did he do? He only brought Shaquille O'Neal when Shaquille O'Neal was really old on that team. And Dan Gilbert has to understand, if you want to compete and you want to keep a player like Kyrie Irving, you have to bring more talent in. You have to bring, like, over the past couple years, people like Tyson Chandler, like, that's a great defender. Look for Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh, even though they're with Miami. But you got to be free agents, because that's the only way you're going to get a player to stay and improve every year.
And I think that's a fair point. I think people always like to blame LeBron for how he left Cleveland and everything, but I say it all the time. Dan Gilbert never surrounded him with the talent he needed. He was going to waste his whole career there carrying that team on his back, and what's the second best player he ever had there? Shaq past his prime, Daniel Gibson, Zydrunas Ilgauskas. It's pathetic. They never put the talent around the guys, and I hope Kyrie Irving leaves. I don't know if it seems like Kyrie Irving, whenever he was asked, he's always said the right thing. He's not going anywhere. But apparently, according to Windhorst, his camp's made it clear he wants out. I hope he goes somewhere else, because that organization just has proven over time that they're not capable of putting together a championship roster, and I hope Kyrie goes somewhere where he has a chance to win. Sticking with the Knick trend, Raymond Felton was in the news a lot this week. Felony gun charges, and the thing that really, look, it's just terrible what happened. Raymond Felton is an idiot, flat out. But the thing that really bothered me with him was in his 1-minute presser where he talked to the media about what happened, and he said that he thought that a gun arrest isn't a distraction to the team. As if the team didn't have enough going on around about all the problems they've had. apparently he thinks this isn't a distraction to the team. I mean, he could face 2 to 7 years in prison for this thing. And the thing that bothered me about last night was Steve Kerr at a point said in the second quarter that Felton was playing well. Aside from a couple of assists, you could hardly even tell he was on the court. He's just been miserable this season. He's had a horrible year as a point guard, and he's had a horrible year off the court as a human being as well. But Rob, as a Knicks fan, you've had to suffer watching this guy play all year. What are your thoughts on this whole felony gun charge thing?
Oh, this is just even more embarrassing. You know, I was watching the report too where he said, "Oh, this isn't a distraction to my team."
Yeah.
This completely is a distraction.
How is it not?
Your team's distracted. Yeah, because you know what? The media is destroying them. New York, that's where the biggest media is. You're getting crushed every day in New York. And then you have to come out with something like this and make it worse to your team? I really don't know what he's doing this year. He completely lost his basketball IQ in general this year. His skill, I don't know what happened whatsoever. And then he calls out the media the other day saying, "Oh, don't say I'm overweight
Yeah,
like
don't
I
say
did in
I'm
Portland."
overweight.
You know, this was the guy. They brought him in. I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. He's having a great career. And then I don't know what's happened. He's probably just looked as the worst point guard ever, and he's just a complete embarrassment to this Knicks franchise. He's looking like a Gilbert Arenas when Gilbert had his gun charges in Washington.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, here's the thing. You usually need your point guard to be one of the smartest players on your team. Generally a rule of thumb because he has to have good court vision. He knows all the plays back at the back of his hand. And generally when you have these felony gun charges and these accusations, it generally doesn't show you're a very smart individual. So I don't think that Raymond Felton is really a clear-cut good point guard. And he's just had a miserable season. 10.4 points per game, 6.0 assists, 3.0 rebounds per game. Just terrible Raymond Felton. And we're just terrible at what he's done this year, and just off the court, bad things as well. But that's our take on the Felton situation. The final thing for the NBA is talking about Danny Granger and Caron Butler. They've signed with teams. We were going to start the segment a different way, but as of today, Butler agrees to sign with the Thunder. Danny Granger agrees to sign with the Clippers. I was very surprised. I thought Caron Butler was a sure thing he was going to sign with the Heat. Him and Dwayne Wade have had very good experience together. They've played together before. They're good friends. Danny Granger I thought was a longer shot. I thought the only reason he might sign with the Heat was because he would want to maybe get revenge against Indiana, and I could definitely see that. But Danny Granger to the Clippers, I thought it was either going to be the Clippers or the Spurs for him. But I'm very surprised on Caron Butler. Rob, what are your thoughts?
Caron Butler, that's a great signing for the Thunder. Yes, the reports were he was going to go to the Heat. That would have been an excellent pickup, Joe, for them.
Really would have helped.
And then Danny Granger, I really thought out of spite he would just go to the Heat just in case they played the Indiana Pacers, which they probably are in the conference finals this year. And that would have just been so great to have him playing against his old team. But you know what? It's great. He signed with the Clippers. That team, Joe, might actually be a championship team now. Picking up Glenn Davis last week, this team is really stacked up, this Clippers team, and they're really playing well this month.
Really, I mean, that big win against Houston. I thought that Houston win would show me a lot about this team, and they won that game, so that was a big statement from them. But stat-wise for Caron Butler, he's 33 years old. He's played 34 games this season, 11.0 points per game, 1.6 assists per game, 4.6 rebounds per game. His minutes have been really weird in Milwaukee. They played him as high as 41 minutes in some cases and as low as 8 in some cases. So his minutes were all over the place. I think nowadays that he's in OKC, he's going to get those minutes stabilized a little bit, and he's going to help out that team a lot. I wish he was going to my Heat because we could use as much more ammunition on the bench as we could get. Granger's a weird one because his points this year are not that good. 29 games played, 8.3 points per game, 1.1 assists per game, 3.6 rebounds. His shooting percentage has really been down, so I don't know how the Clippers are going to use him, but he's just another piece of that team, and I have faith in Doc Rivers. I'm sure he's going to figure out a good way to use them. But that's going to cap it off for our NBA segment. When we come back, we're talking a lot of baseball, a lot to say, a lot to get off my chest. So stay with us, and we will be right back.